Hey guys, welcome to another look at Doom Eternal. And this time I figured we would start something I probably should have already done. Settings. So I made a note to finally actually look through this and show some stuff. Because I actually learned some new things looking through here recently. To begin with, you have your sort of regular gameplay settings here. So like your glory kill highlight, tutorials, in-game tips, stuff like that, and sentinel armor. This is... I was apparently correct that this must have been, sort of incorrect at first, and it was eventually patched out because... Well, actually, no, I guess not. Now that I'm reading this again, it says features not available in Ultra Nightmare or Extra Life mode, but I guess it is available for your standard Nightmare. So, if that's a thing that interests you, if you like playing on a harder difficulty, but want that, backup for when you just can't quite deal with it, then I guess that's still an option. So, Empowered Demons, that may be a thing that you want to turn off if you're struggling. It's an extra, I don't know if it's just friends or random other players or how that works exactly, but superpowered demons that are just, I think, a little bit tougher than normal. They're not as bad as, say, a spirit-possessed enemy in Ancient Gods, but they're a bit powered up and will require a little extra effort to put down and can be dangerous. And they have messed up several runs for me in the past. So, that's a thing to consider turning off if you're not looking for that, extra challenge. Double dash input, it's really just whether or not you need to hold the button or press it twice to double dash. But you can still double dash even if this is set to hold. So it really doesn't matter. It's just whether or not, if you hold the button, that it will dash twice. So if you find yourself accidentally dashing twice when you don't mean to because you're holding it down a little too long, you might toggle that. So some of this, weapon stuff is kind of self-explanatory. You can do that as you like. The one thing I'd like to mention is classic weapon pose. I have started turning this on recently in finishing up my Ancient Gods playthrough and was like, you know what? I think I actually kind of like this. I experimented with it for a hot minute and then tried it out in the Super Gore Nest Master level, and I think I like it. So, yeah, go through those and do as you like. I didn't realize that there were color profiles for the UI. So this is what I've had forever, which honestly is kind of ugly. But there's all these different choices that you have, and I really liked demons, so I stuck with that. They even let you do this menu confirmation time for confirming menu items. That's kind of crazy, the amount of customization they have here. But you can customize your HUD, the scale of it, the opacity. You can choose your crosshair style. They have various presets. And you can, granularly change all of this stuff, which I probably don't need all of this stuff. Compass doesn't really hurt anything. Keycard stock, totally unnecessary, honestly. The interaction prompts, take it or leave it. I think at this point I know all the interactive objects in the game, so I don't necessarily need it, but, whatever, we'll leave it on to be safe. Objective markers, the corruption meter, don't really need that because I think I do everything by default, but just to be safe, we'll leave it on. Let's see, blood punch gauge, sure. Added runes, your dash, your weapon info, and there are going to be changes to this coming up in with Ancient Gods Part 2. They're making this even better, where they're going to allow you to put some of these elements on your crosshair. So that you don't ever have to look away from the center of the screen from where the action is. That's pretty cool, and you'll be able to change that granularly as well to your liking. So that's pretty cool. And you got stuff for notifications here. I don't really mind any of this stuff, so it's all fine. And of course, colorblind UI mode, important for anyone who deals with color blindness. Let's see. Video, more than likely you know your PC well enough to know what you should or shouldn't do here. But I have not honestly done a whole lot of messing with this. I upped the loot drop brightness just out of curiosity. Didn't really notice a huge difference. So actually, let's try setting it down and see if that makes a difference, just for funsies. Might end up setting it back up again because I don't dislike the color, but and of course you can mess with all of your quality settings here. I feel like I get a pretty reasonable FPS with this, so no need to do any more, but you know, you might consider messing with that. If you're having any issues, make sure the game is running nice and smooth. That will certainly make it easier for you to play. Alright, so the meat of this, well, oops, let's apply those very few changes. Go back to our controls here, and of course, I mean, you can obviously change sensitivity scaling how you like. That is a thing that is probably pretty important to make sure you're using something that's comfortable for you. I've gotten very used to these random settings that I chose when I first started playing, so that's fine for me. But we'll take a look at these key bindings real quick. So as you can see, as I've talked about before, ESDF for my movement. I use the right mouse button for jump. It's something I've been doing for, you know, a million years in games. My dash is Z, which is a convenient button to hit. The only problem with actually the way I have that set up is I use my pinky to hit my mod key, left shift, and Z. So it's actually pretty tricky. I can't really effectively dash while I'm holding, while I'm using a mod. So for anything that I have to hold down, like the microwave beam or what have you, on the plasma gun. So that can be a little frustrating, but it is what it is at this point. I doubt I'll change it, but I might consider it later. The usual click for fire. Use V as a melee and glory kill because I've typically used that in other games. Chainsaw is G, a convenient, you know, one press over for my movement keys. My equipment launcher I have mapped to one of my side mouse buttons. I have two of those. So the most convenient of those I have for that. And flame belch is W. That again is immediately right next to my keys because I use it all the time. Crucible's Q, a convenient key, but not one that that I reserve, you know, for some of the more important and frequently used items. So I have T for my weapon swap and the weapon wheel. Of course, I never actually use the wheel, but that's a thing you can do if you need to gain yourself a little breather. You can hold in that weapon wheel and sort of give yourself a second to think while you switch a weapon. X for switching mods, and my other side mouse button for switching my equipment. I actually kind of wish that I could just set those individually, not to just equipment, but to ice bombs and grenades. Like, I wish I could just use those two buttons to instantly fire one or the other, but it is set up the way it is for whatever reason, so that's fine, I guess. My mouse wheel I did not traditionally use because I had that terrible mouse where the wheel didn't properly work, and I never use it for weapon swapping in this game anyway, and nor did I in 2016. It's so much better to have custom weapon hotkeys that allow you to just switch to whatever you need on the fly with no pause. I don't use the one key because it's just slightly far, so I do 2 for shotgun, 3 for plasma rifle. I'm not sure why at some point that got embedded in my brain that that's the way it was supposed to be, and 4 for the heavy cannon. Maybe from some, you know, previous, it might have been set that way in 2016, or it might even just be original Doom, where 1 was your pistol and 2 was your shotgun, and go from there. It might have been set up that way also with 3 as plasma rifle, I'm not sure. And 5 for rocket launcher. That's been traditional, I think, for me since Quake. So I just stick with the classics because they make sense to me. But then I've got A for the super shotgun. That's another easy weapon to hit quickly. I tend to use that in concert with my W for the flame belch, and also the left shift key for the meat hook. So those keys I frequently use all together. C for the ballista. Same thing for the Gauss cannon in 2016. I used C for that as well. It's kind of my my go-to, you know, for a heavy distance weapon like that. Chain gun, R. Again, straightforward. And then B for the BFG. That's a bit more out of the way, but it's not too hard, you know, in a pinch, because you don't use the BFG or the Unmaker all that often, so it's not too hard to reach over there and grab that when you need it. And that's about it. So that gives you an idea of what I'm working with and sort of what I think about when I make a key setup for these games. It's really just convenience and speed. So hopefully that gives you enough of an idea that if you are thinking about changing your own keys, I mean, certainly change it to whatever you're comfortable with, and most of you would be modifying this from an ESDF setup to a WASD setup, because that's what most people prefer. Although I really highly recommend, if you're not totally married to that idea, try ESDF. It works really well and gives you more access to more keys. So yeah, that's it. And we are going to just pop into the next map here. Pop into Super Gore Nest. Okay, so here we are once again at the Fortress of Doom, and this is going to be a busy little session for us. The number one thing to do at this point is to get the ballista, which we're not fully kitted out yet, but we're pretty close once we get this. And this is, frankly, the last piece of, you know, major gear. I have this skin on it that I particularly love. We have one weapon left to get, which is the chain gun, but for now, we are pretty close to fully geared up. So we use our Empyrean key here. And now it's time to do a little upgrading. So my recommendation is to start with these guys here, to use your Sentinel batteries to unlock Praetor Suit points. The reason being, those are things that will just upgrade your whole character the whole time, right? Whereas weapon mods, those are things that you can only use one mod, you know, on a weapon at a time. Of course you can switch between them on the fly, but I feel like it's more important to have something that you use constantly. So this is what I would prioritize personally, especially since the main campaign will really give you a mod per weapon without you really having to do anything else. So you'll always kind of have at least one mod to use, and probably better for you to, you know, get a mod on each weapon and start, you know, learning how to really properly use that. So I don't really recommend that. Runes down here, you can see they have some of those points as well. It's kind of up to you if you've chosen something that maybe you think is less good at this point. You know, you might consider, okay, I want one of these other things and I don't have it yet. So maybe it's worth using some of those points on that stuff. But that's really up to you and depends on your playstyle and how you feel about how the campaign has been going so far. But my personal recommendation is go for those Praetor Suit points instead. Get your manhole covers, your massive coinage, or, you know, whatever these things are. And of course, this is why it's good to try and pay attention to the challenges in a map, which ironically I do not do in the upcoming Super Gore Nest, so I may have to go back and quickly try and do a few of those and get a couple of secrets that I miss. But yeah, worth doing that stuff to get yourself all the upgrades. So one other thing I wanted to mention, we're gonna just run around and look at some stuff. We got another Praetor Suit point here that we can't get yet, but we'll get that next time we come back with some stuff. But yeah, while we're kind of running around and looking at some things, I'm going to spend a couple of weapon points here, I think. Want to finish spending my suit points here. As always, this is kind of a do what you will sort of a thing. Whatever it is you think you need. I really like to fire twice on the grenades before requiring a recharge. That's a really good one to have. It's not usually what I go for like straight off, but by this point in the game, it's pretty important. And then I think I rounded out just to spend this last point on the item stuff, so that way I can make sure if I've missed something important that I go back and get it, like a sentinel battery or something like that, you know, as opposed to a codex item or whatever. Just for the purposes of, you know, this playthrough. So we've got our little I guess not bedroom, but office, whatever, here, where you can look at some fun stuff like toys and that you collect, and you know, these weapons, which unfortunately don't use your chosen weapon skin, which is a little unfortunate. They just use the defaults, but yeah, it's kind of fun. But anyway, while we're just popping around looking at some of this stuff, what I really wanted to mention that I had misspoke about earlier was empowered demons. I was going back and listening to the audio and was like, what I said just makes no sense. What I meant to say was originally the conceit for those was that they were going to be something where players who died, maybe friends or maybe just anybody, they would sort of track with the demons that had killed them, and they would grow in power and appear in other people's games as more powered up, and the more people who died to that same demon, it would power it up more until it was, you know, defeated by somebody. And that may have changed because they increased the spawn frequency of those at some point. So it's entirely possible that that has changed. Got our nice album art on the wall there. It's pretty cool. I do love the being able to just sort of fill your Fortress of Doom with cool stuff. And of course, we've got our different mission select here. If you want to go back and replay stuff, you can do that from here. You can also do it from the main menu as well. But and of course, the master levels, same deal. Super Gore Nest I've been trying out. It's really fun. So yeah, those are recommended. And you can, you know, if you go back and play stuff, you can work on your masteries, like getting headshots or meat hook kills, like we've been working on here. So that's worth noting as well. But yes, I wanted to mention that about the empowered demons. Don't know how they work now. It may have changed in an update. They seem to have updated it, so it may not really be tied to online anymore. I'm not really sure. So we had a couple points. Just grab the quick fire there. Just sort of double checking all my stuff before we jump into the level. But the other thing I want to mention is my FOV. You will notice that I unfortunately skipped right over that in the settings, and that's like one of the most important things to talk about, your field of view. There is a slider for that here. So, you know, give that a whirl. If you find the default view a little limiting, I was using, I think, 100 when I started this, and was like, you know, I really need to boost this up. So I did boost it up. So there's bit of a weird transition here, and we don't get the nice little teleport animation because I had to restart the mission. Because my dog went crazy. There was something outside. It was the middle of the night when I was recording this. And she really just wanted to eat something and was causing consternation, and I really didn't want her to wake up my wife, which she did anyway. So yeah, no, I had to stop in like the middle of this fight. I really hadn't even gotten very far into this fight. But decided that I needed to deal with that and just start it over, so I did. Just using the restart mission option from the menu, which allows you to start it at the same state that you went into it with. So one thing I will note about my play here is that I have already forgotten that I've been so used to going from my Ancient Gods playthrough and like fiddling with master levels and stuff that I've been doing back to the earlier campaign that I've already forgotten that I have the ballista. So if you notice that I am distinctly not using it for a while, it's because I literally just had a brain fart and forgot that I actually have it now, which is kind of dumb, but whatever. So this is really kind of the first big deal level, I guess, in the game. This is where like things start to kind of kick off. Some of the fights in here are kind of bigger and badder than some of the ones in levels previous to it, and this is where you're kind of fully tricked out. The training wheels kind of come off a bit. You've got all your stuff for the most part, and there's really nothing you need to be taught so much. I mean, there's still plenty to learn as you go through the game, but as far as like new concepts or whatever, most of the basic stuff is now known to you, and it's just a question of like, okay, new enemies and new environments and that kind of stuff, and just improving your skills as you go. This also has some of the best music in the game. I really do love this track. So, a few unfortunate mistakes here. There are occasional issues with Blood Punch. Not 100% sure if they patched that yet. I remember Hugo Martin, the game director, on a stream at some point talking about how they were aware that there was an issue where occasionally Blood Punch would not connect the way it seems it should have. So I don't know if that's been patched or if that is in an upcoming patch, because I've been watching some of that stuff a little bit retroactively. But I have noticed a few times, myself, where I've thrown a Blood Punch and thought that it should have connected and it didn't, and I'm not sure how much of that is user error and like, not quite being close enough or what have you. But whatever. That's okay. Just something to be aware of, that may be getting improved in an update to come if it hasn't been already. So let's see, I think I mentioned this before, but I've switched to the classic weapon view here, where the weapons are dead center on the screen, kind of a la original Doom. I don't know how much of a difference it makes, but I have found that I kind of like it. That it appeals to me, as far as like aiming goes. I feel like I'm, I don't know, a little bit improved using that versus the regular sort of side-on view of the weapons. Maybe that's just a thing that's in my head rather than anything that's actually true, but regardless, I've come to like it, so I'm leaving it on. I'm honestly not sure if I had changed the FOV slider. I've changed it to 115. Many people would probably just instantly slide it all the way over. but you know, whatever you're comfortable with. And I may have done that prior to this video, I'm not sure. Either way, we've kind of got a nice updated feel to things with the UI color change and different weapon view and stuff. So feeling pretty good about that. The game feels a little more comfortable with some of those nice changes. So experiment with those as you like, and you know, see what does it for you.
My brothers and sisters, let's hope to make our friends transition into their new world a
So working on those masteries there. So I'm going to get the arbalest here because that is, I don't have any mod on the ballista currently, so I want to get one on there. And I never found a use for the other mod, the sort of wide beam thing. It takes so long to charge. Like even after upgrading, it was never something I really went for. It probably does have its uses if you know, get good at using it, but I never really did. So I mostly stick with the arbalest, which is pretty handy when you have a spare minute. It also requires charging, but not nearly as much. So really right here I would normally have started doing some weapon swapping with like the ballista, which also works as a good combo with the precision bolt on your heavy cannon here. But again, I've just sort of forgotten that I have it. I'm not sure, at some point I remember and start using it a bit, but this would be a perfect opportunity to do some fast swapping to get a little extra damage. That's a skill that's worth practicing, at least for like a bit. Depending on what you're doing, you may not really care that much, or you may not even like doing it that much. It's a skill. It's something you just need to practice and kind of get into your muscle memory a bit, like many things in Doom Eternal. So we gotta get our key card there before we can progress, but first we'll get this one up over here. So yeah, the weapon swapping is somewhat optional, but it will definitely help improve your play if you master it. And it's not too hard, even if you just sort of get a single combo. That's actually supposed to open that secret up right there, and I forgot you have to actually land on the pillar to get it. And don't do what I did here, which is instantly blood punch all of these pinkies, because one of the challenges, which again I totally forgot to look at, is to get 3 different glory kills on pinkies. So there's plenty of pinkies there for you to do that with. But if you just murder them outright, either with blood punch or extreme prejudice to the back there with a powerful weapon like the super shotgun, then you know you're missing your opportunity. So bear that in mind. But yes, the hot swapping of your weapons is a learned skill, and it's worth learning. But if you don't want to invest a whole lot of time and effort into it, then you may just think that it's okay to work on a single combo. And if you're going to do that, probably the easiest one to work on is Super Shotgun to Ballista, because you can really do some major damage, and you don't have to worry about like splash damage if you were going to do it like Rocket Launcher or something. And it's not quite as fiddly as Precision Bolt, which requires you not only to switch to the heavy cannon, but then also to use the mod. So if you're going to learn one, then I definitely recommend learning how to swap fire, swap fire, swap fire. Do that combo on your Super Shotgun and the Ballista. So this is a new mechanic here, the buff totem, which they appear just kind of at varying intervals throughout the rest of the game, and whatever enemies are present in that arena are just going to be super strong. They're extra fast. Not sure if they take any longer to kill, but they're extra fast, and that alone is kind of a problem. They might do a little more damage too, I'm not sure. Either way, you have to kill the first wave of them in here before these teleports open up. And that's kind of the gimmick, is you then have to find the right teleport to get into where the buff totem is, so that you can punch it to death. And I believe there's 2 buff totems in this level. There's this one and then another one that comes up later. So as you sort of go through these teleporters and deal with what's behind them, they close off. And your first time out, this will be frantic because you don't know which one to go into. And honestly, I just guessed. I couldn't remember which one it was. I just went into a random one and it happened to be the correct ones. That was nice. And we're rewarded with our key. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything, and frankly, I think I did. I want to say that there's a secret encounter somewhere in here that I missed. Which is a bummer. Because I, left some weapon points on the table there. It's a thing I'm going to have to go back and do later so that I stay on track with points for this playthrough. Again, this is kind of a casual playthrough, so I'm not super worried about all this stuff, but I want to make sure, especially with the upgrade things, that I'm letting you guys see all the upgrades as they should become available. Just to make sure we're hitting all our bases and I'm not, leaving anything out that you might be able to get. Get that little secret up there. And use the key down here to get to the next area. And we can get this rune. So by now you've already gotten 3 things. So this is kind of a chance for you to change things up if you've picked something that you don't like, or if you just want to sort of have something else in your arsenal that you can switch to. You can switch to these things on the fly. So at any point, even during a fight, you can, I believe, open these up and change them, which may be useful. I rarely do it because I tend to stick to the same speed-related ones that I just enjoy a lot. But there are definitely plenty of fights over the course of the game which have unique features that you may think, you know what, this would be a great time for me to change this up and use something else. If you're not so good at, pulling off these rapid precision bolts, then like the slowdown time one while you use your mods, that might be like super handy for you in certain fights where you really need to take out some of those weak points. And that's the thing I did want to talk about, is you will notice that you may have noticed this before or you may not, I'm not sure. At times, especially early in the game when things are a little more leisurely, you can just kind of like zoom in and take your time, seek out a hard point on an enemy and snipe it, and that's cool. But the more hectic things get, the more quickly you need to operate, the more momentary presses are really going to serve you well. Where you're like that, where you're kind of aiming normally and then just really quickly moving into your scope and firing off that precision bolt without sticking around, with no hesitation and without having to sit in that scope mode for more than a split second. It's good for popping off headshots on single enemies, and it's good for taking out weak points, depending on how good you are with it. I'm not the best, but I'm okay. Good enough to do it more often than not, I guess. But I definitely still, miss plenty of shots as well. But that's a skill you can kind of work on. Like sometimes it's fine to sit there and take a second. But especially when you're comboing, it's also good to use. So right there you'll notice I was actually about to fall off of the edge, and I managed to save myself from it by using the chainsaw to kind of magnetize myself to that soldier. And that's something I wanted to talk about because I don't know if I've mentioned it yet or not. But glory kills and chainsaw are great for that. They can be used as mobility, as traversal features, where if you have somebody who's like, say, above a ledge and you're a bit below it, you can actually either chainsaw or if they're in a glory kill state, glory kill them and kind of magnetize to their position. Sort of like a minor version of the meat hook, I guess. So definitely a thing to note. This is a fairly intense arena. And these carcass guys are pretty annoying. And unfortunately, I miss my I had an opportunity to use a sticky bomb, failed it, did a regular shot by accident instead, and I paid the price for it. Those cacodemons are nothing to sneeze at if they get in close. So either lock-on burst or remote detonate would have been helpful in that circumstance in getting rid of that guy. I happened to have lock-on equipped, so it was the one I decided to use, but that also would have been a perfectly good use for remote detonate, which I believe if it's fully upgraded it also staggers enemies. Of course, there is a quad damage on this map, which I have repeatedly avoided for some silly reason. I think because I thought there was a second fight in this area later on where that would be useful, and I think that's not actually the case. For some reason my memory said, hey, there is another fight when you come back to this little like hub section that you have to return to with keys at a couple intervals. But it doesn't appear to have been the case, so essentially I could have made my life easier and probably not lost that life if I had used the quad damage, so whoops. Do make use of those things. I'm just kind of exploring the map because I only did about maybe half of the Super Gore Nest master level, and I honestly just don't remember where things are, so I'm trying to make sure I don't miss anything, even though of course I do. Alright, so our objective here is to stick the magical colored keys into the horrible bone things. And there are some secrets, like up there we have our Slayer gate key, so we'll need to get that eventually. But it's a little while yet, I think, before I remember how to get to any of this stuff.
Sometimes evolution just needs a little push. And here at the UAC, we push hard.
So now we're kind of in the belly of the beast here. There's some tighter close quarters combat here. There's a Spectre, one of the invisible pinkies. That's a good one to take out with your blood punch, just so that he is not annoying to you. So this is one of those empowered guys that we were speaking of earlier. They're a little bit tougher. I think they take a little more to kill. Maybe they do a little more damage. I'm honestly not entirely sure. But they are generally supposed to be a little bit harder, and they do drop more rewards. So it's not a total bum deal. You actually do get more drops from them when you kill them. Okay, so now we've got our Sentinel Crystal, and you know what? I think I was misspeaking earlier in the Fortress of Doom, saying that you could get runes out of those, but of course that is not correct. This is the Sentinel Crystals, so these might be worth grabbing with your Sentinel batteries, especially if you're like one off, you know, from one of these, from getting one of those upgrades that you really would like. One of those middle bonuses that you get for having two on either side, then it might be worth spending, you know, a pair of batteries on that at the Fortress of Doom just to unlock it sooner. That would not be a bad way to go. Down to the next level here.
It has taken root in this facility's main power generator. Reactivating the generator will destroy the nest.
So you can see already right there, using that double grenade is super handy. I kind of fudged the positioning on the first one, so being able to just fire off another is really great without having to switch over to my ice bomb. Is still a bit of a recharge time on it, so it's not like you can just spam them all the time, but it is an incremental. You can see that it just refilled there, so halfway, that is. So it is nice to be able to get the refill as it goes, eventually getting up to your full stock of 2, but if you end up needing it in the interim, you don't have to wait for the whole thing to recharge. You can still just use a single one when it recharges halfway. So in that locked room there, we've got our final weapon. Well, not our final weapon, I guess, but our final piece of sort of stock gear. And eventually we'll, of course, get the BFG and eventually unlock the Unmaker and the Crucible, the sword thing. But those are kind of your, you know, super powered weapons. So this is the last of your stock weapons. So got some slime here that we have to traverse. Avoid these guys. I'm just kind of looking around because I can't remember if there's ledges to get up on or secrets or anything lying around. You'll want to make use of the pickups throughout this area. The little radioactive, that suit that I picked up is the hazmat suit. And then the little radioactive symbols you can see like down there that will recharge your suit a bit. Which I should have gone and grabbed that. There it is. So boost that back up to 100. And down here, of course, there is a passage to get to this Sentinel battery. There's a fair bit of secret-y goodness on this level. This is a really big level. As you can tell, this is probably far and away our longest video yet.
Your fear will cease to exist.
And there's lots to look at and do here. I should have gone over to that and I didn't, although the reason I doubled back was because I realized I didn't need it. And I think I eventually do get it, but you do have to backtrack a bit if you don't need it there. So the key is hiding there. I'm just, again, kind of looking around to make sure I don't miss anything. So one up hiding over here. And I've run out of my suit now, but that's okay. And this is one of the 2 secret encounters. This is the one that I did not miss, which is a little tricky. It's not too bad. It's one of the easier ones. It's mainly easy to miss if you don't realize that the majority of the enemies are down here. And that guy can kind of get away from you. So you do have to kill all of these zombies, which you can make short work of, and Lock-on Burst is handy here as well. So now we are free to go back and get this if we want. I think it makes the most sense to go around the other way, if I recall correctly. Let's jump up here, get our key, which that opens the shortcut back here. There's another pinky, so if you're going for that challenge that I have 100% ignored, then that's another good opportunity to do one of those. And of course, a Praetor Suit point here. So get you your manhole cover and get out. I wanted to go get that mega health. I was a little worried about being so low on health because I knew I was going to have to hit the floor at some point and didn't want to just like instantly die. So I just decided to go this way first. So we can pick up our chain gun. I still don't think I've used the ballista a single time in this map. So this teleports you back, and now I have enough stack that I feel like I can safely risk going for the mega health, although I didn't take too much damage there.
The UAC.
Let's grab that and just head back. Accidentally took some flame damage there, but not a problem. Those things don't do a whole lot. Open our way to the heart here.
The generator is in a dormant state. 2 nearby control terminals will need to be manually activated to restore full power. Unlocking the left terminal room now.
So these are the 2 big objectives for the remainder of the level, is to find and pull these switches, one of which is right here, the other which is hidden away somewhere that we have to go find.
50% of power has been restored. The second control terminal still requires activation to destroy the nest. I'm unable to open the door to the second
Ask
terminal
not
at
what
this
we
time.
can do for
You'll
you.
need to find an alternate
Ask
route.
what you can do for us.
Don't forget your map here. This is, of course, highly useful when you are trying to find those secrets.
Do not run from our mortally challenged guest.
That was a really unfortunate. I just did not know that that guy was there, and he blindsided me. And that shows you the power of the shield soldiers, just how fast they can take you out if you're unprotected with one right next to you and can't get away quickly. Then that's it. There's a few little like trap rooms and stuff like this in our sort of corridor crawling sections of Super Gore Nest. This is a fun level. This is one of my favorites, I think, in the game. There's plenty of good ones, but I really enjoy this one a lot. So I was very excited when there was the master level that came out. So Energy Shield is what I would recommend probably for for this weapon. It gives you a shield while you hold it, and as soon as you let it go, it takes time to recharge again. Even if you just, put it up momentarily. Okay, so buff totem time, and it took me a minute to remember where to go. I didn't handle this especially well. Let me go through here, grab a 1-up. Some armor points, and it's up here on the other side of all that nonsense. And I thought I could be tricky and get by this guy. He proved me wrong. That's a pro tip right there. Don't try to sneak past a Kappa demon. It's not likely to work. Yeah, so back to what I was saying about the chain gun. It's... Initially, I had said to myself, of course, I don't think there's any reason to take this stupid shield thing. I don't like that at all. That's terrible. If you just stay fast, you'll avoid damage. Like, what's the point? And instead, I went with the mobile turret, which when you're fully upgraded, you can still move around while you're using it, so it's not as restrictive, and it does dump a boatload of ammo into enemies, and it can stagger some. I want to say it'll stagger the Hell Knight and possibly something else. Don't miss that Praetor Suit point. That's a very easy one to miss. But in any case, I have come to discover that the shield is actually quite useful in certain circumstances. Especially like certain arena fights. There was a couple of times in Ancient Gods that it made life significantly easier for me. So I get the scatter bombs here, so when you kill an enemy with a grenade, it drops a bunch more small grenades. That's a pretty worthwhile upgrade to grab. I do love the vistas here. I'm looking around, appreciating some of the gorgeous visuals in this game. Really just... artistically a really cool game. So I knew that there was a secret over there, and I couldn't remember quite how to get to it. But you do that from over here. So this is a little jumping, dashing puzzle. Just avoid the lava junk and the flaming Bowser Castle flame things.
Sacrifice today makes for a better tomorrow.
And this is how you go over and get that. Just a long jump from there. Yeah, it's a shame for all the looking around the map I did that I still didn't manage to find everything. And of course I somehow accidentally dashed too early, like before I had let go of the monkey bar, I guess. I didn't really know that was possible, but I flubbed it nonetheless. So we just climb our way back.
See new sights.
Grab a little health.
Soar to new heights. Join the official Mortally Challenged Visitor Welcoming Committee today.
So I got the saving throw here just to sort of have on hand in case I want it. I honestly don't know if there's a place where I would say I really need it, but I don't know. At this point I'm using the runes that I generally use, so anything else I get is kind of gravy. I might have been better to take the slow-mo, but because there's some fights where that can make your life a little bit easier, but whatever. It's fine. The things we have are good. And hey, I remembered that I had the ballista at long last. At long last. So we got ourselves a hazmat suit down here, or, you know, a recharge for it. This takes us into this next radioactive bit. Those do recharge quite quickly. Satisfied myself that I wasn't truly missing out on anything. I know I said I wasn't going for 100%, but I'm still an absolute perfectionist, and I get real weird about these things. Don't want to do that too much, you know, on video here to waste everyone's time, but sometimes I apparently just can't help myself. Another suit point here. I think I saw that little pad down on the bottom there and was like, huh, what's that? I need to check it out. My curiosity will not abate. And it just does that. So that's not a thing you need to worry about. So I didn't really even need to hot swap there, but at least I'm remembering that I have the ballista and that hot swapping is a thing that I can do. Got that blue key, so we're ready to progress. Of course, we'd see it up at the top there if we hadn't turned off the key indicator before we started this map. That's really just more screen clutter. If you're following the waypoints, then you don't need anything. There are tentacles in this area, so you don't really need to worry about those. Just get rid of that spicy dude, and we are back here, and there is a small fight back in this area where we were before, but I mean, it's not much of anything. Still would have been, you know, smart for me to use the quad damage, but I didn't do it here either. Sometimes I get a little tunnel vision, I guess. I'm just so busy shooting dudes that I forget to do the smart thing. And there's not that many to worry about regardless, so it doesn't really matter. That was actually cheeky. I don't know why that guy died. I don't know if it was just like, okay, you've completed this, you've killed the trash mob, so I was expecting to be able to meat hook over to that guy and not fall in the lava, and then of course he just falls over dead, so that didn't work out so well. So I figure I'll use the keys up here. Get this all unlocked and ready to go. And I couldn't remember when fast travel unlocked, but
this air shaft will provide access to the generator's control terminal.
so we go through here and grab ourselves a new album. And that leads you back to here, so we can open all of these. finally get up here, which will let us do a wall grab and get over to find the Slayer key. The Slayer Gate key. There's another pinky in here, I believe. Spectre, even. Get some armor. Get another sentinel battery over there. And there's our key. So now we can go do the Slayer Gate for this level. Just making sure it was topped off because I couldn't actually remember which gate this was. I remember having a reasonably tough time with this the first time I went through the game. Definitely had to do this multiple times. But it's not a super hard one. Got a mess of soldiers here, which means lots of fodder enemies to both stock up on your resources, but who also get in your way. And you can see a good example there. There's been a few good examples on this map of the Carcass and their ranged ability, that little loopy beam thing that they fire. Which is actually pretty bad. Don't get hit by it. The Carcass is a fairly easy enemy to avoid for the most part, because they're not super fast. Their movement is fairly predictable, but at the same time, when they hit you quite hard, and they do move pretty quickly, you know, at very close range. So they can sideswipe you quite easily. So you notice I'm kind of slingshotting myself a bit here. That's another thing I wanted to mention that's sort of in the technique spectrum. If you're using your super shotgun, your meat hook, there are a few more pinkies in here which you might be able to glory kill for that challenge as well. But yeah, if you're using your meat hook and zap yourself over to somebody and then jump before you've, you know, naturally hit the end of that, it will let go and your momentum will continue to carry you. So that's actually pretty darn good. It's a nice way to slingshot yourself around a level, or to sort of zip past someone and continue your momentum. It's the kind of thing that you'll probably end up doing somewhat naturally over time as you get better at the game, and as your ability improves, your muscle memory for other things kind of gets ingrained. It's not something I ever really even consciously thought about. At some point I was just like, it was just a natural thing to do. So like you see, I just sort of flung myself off the back of him there. It's pretty rare that I use the meat hook and don't do that, honestly. It's just kind of a natural thing. And that is that gate. Movement is really everything in this game. I mean, it's the number one thing I think that distinguishes this from Doom 2016, or at least one of the big ones. Obviously, the gameplay loop has changed somewhat in the dynamics of, you know, armor and blood punch and chainsaw and restocking your resources that way. But movement is really, I think, the biggest thing with the dash and the meat hook and all that stuff. So they very much want you to make use of those things. Like, they put those things into the game to just make it more fast, more fluid, and considerably more fun, I think. It's hard to go back to 2016 because it feels kind of slow. Let this cutscene play out because I couldn't remember how all this went, and there's a little escape sequence here where you destroy the heart and you have to get out. So I didn't want to get taken by surprise, as has occasionally happened when I've been skipping cutscenes. So the last thing I want to do on video is do something dumb like fail to escape.
The generator is overloading. I have marked your exit.
You get plenty of time, though. It's not particularly tough. It's fairly obvious which way to go. These waypoint markers really guide you along the path. So you can kill enemies or not. You can mostly just zip past everything and not really worry about it. And I don't think there's any reason not to. Like, the only thing I missed in this level was one of the secret encounters. So I don't think you're gonna, miss like a weapon point for skipping these enemies or anything. And that's that. So we're rewarded with this lovely little cutscene of mass quantities of garbagey looking demon flesh exploding. Always a good time. And yeah, that is the end of Super Gore Nest. So, unfortunate that I missed a few things. Did not get a couple of those challenges and missed one of the secret encounters. So this is one that on your first time through, you'll probably have to go back and get some stuff, because if you don't have all the, map upgrade stuff unlocked, it might be a little difficult to find everything. It's a big level. So yeah, that is Super Gore Nest, and I'm excited to move on from here and talk a little more about the remaining levels, but we've kind of covered a lot, so I hope this has been useful for you and you've found a lot of good stuff that will help you in your own play. So with that, I will see you guys next time.